My name is Kira Langdon, and I'm 34 years old. If you'd asked me a couple of months ago to describe my life, I would have said it was steady. Not glamorous, not tragic, just solid in a way that made sense to me. I'm an operations coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company. Timelines, process maps, endless spreadsheets. Nothing that would impress someone who measures worth in job titles and corner offices, but it pays the bills. I rent a modest one-bedroom apartment with creaky floors and a dishwasher that kicks on automatically at 12:01 a.m. to catch the off-peak power rates. Every Sunday at 5 p.m., my budget spreadsheet updates itself, color-coded, formulas locked, projections tucked neatly into hidden tabs only I ever see. That sheet is my ballast. As long as the numbers line up, I feel like my life does too. At the center of that steady life was my boyfriend of a year and a half, Logan Archer. We met through work, different departments, same company. He was in marketing, all presentations and client pitches and slick campaigns. I was in operations, buried in back-end workflows and shipping metrics. We started as coworkers, then friends. Then one night, after too many drinks at a company happy hour, he walked me to my car and kissed me in the parking garage. Logan was the kind of man people noticed, not because he was loud, but because he was polished. He always knew what to say in a room full of strangers, always wore the right thing without looking like he tried. He remembered people's names, their kids' ages, their dogs' birthdays. Next to him, I felt functional, solid, the kind of person you rely on to keep everything running, not the one you build a story around. At first, he said he liked that about me. "You're grounded," he told me once, curled up on my couch while the dishwasher hummed in the kitchen. "You're not constantly performing for people. It's refreshing." But over time, grounded slowly shifted into awkward. It didn't happen all at once. It was little comments, slipped in like helpful suggestions. "Hey, maybe don't wear that sweater to my friend's thing. It's kind of dowdy." Try to tell the shorter version of that story, okay? You lose people halfway through. "Just let me handle the ordering." You always pick the cheapest wine and people notice. Always framed as feedback, always delivered with a smile. Always landing like a stone in my stomach. Logan's 31st birthday was coming up on a Friday. For weeks, every time I brought it up, he'd dodge. "I'm not sure what I want to do yet," he'd say, scrolling through his phone. "Maybe something low-key. I'll let you know." It was a Monday night, 4 days before his birthday, when everything cracked. We were in the kitchen making dinner. Pasta, jarred sauce, garlic bread from the freezer. The kind of weeknight meal we'd made 100 times. I was stirring the sauce. He was chopping vegetables with the too-sharp knife he insisted on buying. "So," I said, trying to sound casual, "your birthday's Friday. Should we make a reservation somewhere? Invite a few friends? Maybe your sister, some coworkers?" He stopped chopping, knife hovering over the cutting board. "Actually," he said, "I've been meaning to talk to you about that." My hand tightened on the wooden spoon. "Okay. I think it's better if you don't plan anything this year." I frowned. "You don't want to celebrate?" "I want to celebrate," he said quickly, "just not with you planning it." I set the spoon down. "What does that mean?" He sighed, like I was already being difficult. "It means every time you plan something, Kira, it's embarrassing." The word hung in the air, heavier than the steam from the boiling pasta. "Embarrassing," I repeated slowly. "Remember my department holiday party?" he went on, as if he'd been saving this speech. "You wore that chunky cardigan and those boots. It was fine, but everyone else was more dressed up. And you told that story about your college roommate flooding the dorm kitchen. No one laughed. It was just awkward." My face went hot. "Or maybe your friends just aren't funny," I muttered. He ignored that. "And my friend Jenna's birthday dinner? You picked the cheapest wine on the menu. It tasted awful. People notice that stuff. I don't want that on my birthday." "So what are you suggesting?" I asked, my voice thinner than I wanted it to be. "I'm suggesting you don't plan anything," he said. "I'll handle my own birthday. You can just show up if I invite you." "If you invite me," I repeated, "to your birthday." "Don't be dramatic," he said. "I just want to control my own event this year, make sure it's done right. Because I can't do anything right." "That's not what I said." "It's exactly what you said." My heart was pounding, but my voice came out flat. "You said I embarrass you, that I always pick wrong, wear wrong, talk wrong, that you're not even sure you want me at your birthday." "You're twisting my words." "I'm repeating them," I said. "Don't plan anything. You always embarrass me. If I invite you, those were your actual words." He sighed again. that long, irritated exhale that somehow turned everything into my fault. Fine, don't help with my birthday. I'll take care of it myself. Sure, I said, you do that. We finished making dinner in silence. He went to the living room to watch TV, some show he'd seen a dozen times. We ate off our laps, side by side on the couch, our shoulders almost touching, but not quite. That night, he fell asleep in front of the TV. I turned off the lamp, pulled a blanket over him, and went to bed alone. The next morning, Tuesday, I woke up early. My chest felt tight, like I'd slept with a weight on it. I walked out to the kitchen, thinking about coffee, about whether I should apologize just to smooth things over. Logan wasn't out there, but his laptop was, open on the dining table, screen glowing, still logged into his email. I tell myself I didn't mean to snoop. That's not entirely true. I paused. I hesitated. And then I saw a subject line I couldn't unsee. Friday plans. Final details. The email was from Sabrina Lowe. I knew who Sabrina was. Everyone did. She was his ex-girlfriend, the one he outgrew in his mid-20s. They still work together on campaigns sometimes. He always talked about her like she was a harmless fossil from his past. We're just co-workers now. It's not weird, I promise. I clicked the email. It was about his birthday. Specifically, about the dinner party Sabrina was hosting at her apartment on Friday night for close friends only. The guest list was attached. 12 names. Some co-workers I recognized, a couple of his college friends, his sister. My name wasn't on it. The email ended with, "Can't wait to celebrate you properly this year. Kay doesn't need to know all the details yet. Kay, me." The smiley face pressed itself into my brain like a bruise. My thumb hovered over the trackpad. I scrolled further up the chain. They'd been planning this for 2 weeks. Restaurant ideas, guest list, inside jokes about no cardigans allowed. At one point, Logan wrote, "I just want it to feel like me. No awkward moments, no cheap wine, no secondhand embarrassment." Sabrina replied, "I get it. You deserve a night where you're fully seen. We'll make it perfect." My stomach flipped. I should have stopped there. Instead, I searched his inbox for her name. There were months of emails. Nothing explicitly sexual, nothing you could forward to HR. But emotionally, it was a different story. Still doesn't get why I need space sometimes. I wish I could just enjoy time with people who understand me. You always got me in a way she doesn't. Each line felt like a tiny cut, not enough to kill on its own, but together. I took a breath, then another. My hands were shaking. Then the part of me that lives in hidden tabs and backup folders kicked in. Quietly, methodically, I started taking screenshots. The guest list. The K doesn't need to know line. The complaints about me. The little hearts Sabrina put next to his name in her signature. I emailed the screenshots to myself from my phone, then deleted the sent message and cleared his recent activity. When I was done, the inbox looked untouched. Logan came out of the bedroom around 8, rubbing his eyes. "Morning," he said. "Morning." He glanced at the laptop. "Oh, hey, I must have left that open. Sorry." "Don't worry about it," I said. My voice sounded almost normal. He leaned over and kissed my forehead. "Listen, about last night, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I just want my birthday to be nice, you know?" "I understand," I said. His eyebrows lifted. "Really? Really?" I looked him straight in the eye. "You plan whatever you want. I won't interfere." He relaxed, smiled. "You're being really mature about this." I didn't respond. I just walked to the door, grabbed my bag, and headed to work. On the bus, my phone vibrated with a calendar notification. Sunday, 5 p.m., budget review. For the first time in a long time, the thought came to me uninvited. Numbers aren't the only things you can schedule down to the minute. By the time I stepped off the bus, I hadn't just accepted what Logan was doing. I'd already started thinking about when and how I was going to let the truth land. The rest of that Tuesday moved in a strange, slow motion. On the surface, nothing had changed. I answered emails, updated shipment schedules, sat through a status meeting where my manager said the word throughput 17 times. People swung by my desk to ask about weekend plans, and I smiled and said something vague about laundry and maybe a movie. Underneath all of that, my brain kept circling back to one sentence. Kay doesn't need to know. It wasn't just the lie. It was how casual it was, how comfortable he felt deciding what I did and didn't need to know about his own birthday, about his ex hosting it, about him complaining about me in her inbox. On my lunch break, I ducked into a quiet corner of the cafeteria with my phone and opened the email I'd sent to myself. The screenshots were all there, clean, undeniable. If there's one thing I understand, it's documentation. At work, nothing counts until it's written down. Promises, timelines, changes. If it's not in writing, it's just wishful thinking. In a different context, that might be a cute quirk. In this one, it meant I had receipts. That night, he was unusually cheerful. When I got home, he was standing at the counter, phone pressed between his shoulder and ear, laughing at something. "No, it's perfect," he was saying. "Yeah, that guest list works. Just make sure—" He saw me, startled a little, and turned his back. "Hey, babe, just a sec," he murmured into the phone, then out loud to me, "Work thing." "Work thing, right." He stayed in the kitchen, speaking in a lower voice, eyes flicking to me every few seconds like I was a dog he was hoping wouldn't beg for scraps. I poured myself a glass of water, opened the fridge, took out ingredients I didn't really want, just to look busy. The longer I focused on the rhythm of opening and closing cabinets, the less likely I was to walk over and snatch the phone out of his hand. He hung up a minute later, upbeat. "Sorry, that was about Friday," he said, like that would clarify anything. "My team's trying to lock some stuff in." "Big campaign?" I asked. "Something like that." He kissed my cheek. "Nothing you need to worry about." The words landed like a second echo of that email. "Nothing you need to worry about. Kay doesn't need to know." I made dinner. He scrolled through his phone between bites, thumbs moving fast, screen tilted away from me just enough to be noticeable. If I'd seen that a year ago, it would have sent me spiraling. I would have asked, "Is everything okay?" Or, "Who are you texting?" and then apologized for asking. This time, I just watched him from across the table and thought, "You really think you're the only one who knows how to keep secrets?" Wednesday morning, he was humming in the shower. He came out of the bathroom with a towel around his waist, hair damp, looking happier than I'd seen him in weeks. "So," he said, leaning on the bedroom doorframe, "what are your plans for Friday night?" I was pulling on my jeans back to him. "I don't know," I said. "Probably stay in, order takeout, watch something." "Really?" His tone carried that mix of surprise and satisfaction. "You're not upset I'm doing my own thing?" "You said you wanted to manage your own birthday," I reminded him. "I'm respecting that." He hesitated. "I might be out late," he added, "so don't wait up." I forced a small smile. "I won't." He studied me for a moment, as if he was trying to figure out which one of us was acting. "You're being very chill about this," he said finally. "I'm 34, not 14, I replied. "You want to celebrate with your friends. I'm not going to throw a tantrum about it." He nodded, apparently satisfied with my maturity. If he noticed that my eyes were colder than my voice, he didn't mention it. At work that day, I kept catching my mind drifting. Part of me wanted to do the straightforward thing. Sit him down, show him the emails, ask, "What exactly is this?" while he stammered through excuses about context and tone and how I'd misunderstood everything. But every version of that conversation ended the same way, in my head at least. He'd say it was harmless. He'd say I was jealous. He'd point out the lack of explicit lines crossed, the absence of the word dating or relationship in those messages, like that erased the intimacy. He'd say nothing happened, as if months of choosing someone else emotionally didn't count as something. That night, after he went to bed early, to be rested for Friday, I sat at the dining table with my laptop open to my own email. The apartment was quiet. The only sounds were the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. The glow of the screen turned my hands a faint blue. I created a new message and typed an address I'd memorized the moment I saw it. To sabrinalow@company.com. Subject, about Friday. My cursor blinked in the body of the email, impatient. I sat there for a long time before I started typing. "Hi, Sabrina. You don't know me personally, but you know who I am. I'm Kira, Logan's girlfriend." I stared at the word girlfriend. Somehow, putting it in writing made it feel less certain. Less like a fact and more like a legal status that was about to expire. "I'm not writing this to start a fight with you," I continued, "but I think you deserve to know the full context of the party you're hosting on Friday." Attached are some screenshots from Logan's email, the ones about his birthday plans, and a few others he didn't realize I've seen. I paused, then added, "You'll see that he's left out a few details, like the part where he's been living with me for the last year, or the part where he told me not to plan anything for his birthday because I always embarrass him." My fingers flew faster now, pulled along by a quiet anger that had finally found a channel. "You'll also see how he talks about me to you. How he calls me Kay, like a placeholder. How he tells you he needs space from me and wants to be around people who understand him." I almost wrote, "You used to date him. You know how he can be," but deleted it. Whatever history they'd had was between them. What he was doing now, that was on him. I don't know exactly what he's told you about us, I wrote instead. Maybe he's made it sound like we're barely together. Maybe he said we're on a break. That's not the truth. We've been in a committed relationship for a year and a half. We share a lease. We share bills. I've been planning a future with someone who was quietly planning his birthday without me, in your apartment. I attached the screenshots, carefully chosen, enough to draw a full picture without overwhelming her with the entire archive I'd built that morning. At the bottom, I finished with, I'm not asking you to do anything specific with this information. I just think if you're going to host a close friends only celebration for someone, you should know exactly who you're celebrating and what he's been hiding from both of us. Kira. I reread the email 3 times. There was a version of this where I hit send immediately, let the grenade go off on a random Wednesday night. But another part of me, the part that schedules payments and sets reminders and segments expenses into tidy categories, wanted precision. In my world, timing mattered. A misplaced date in a formula could mess up an entire quarter. An ill-timed truth could be just as messy. I clicked the little arrow next to send and chose schedule send. A small window popped up. Tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, Monday morning, or pick date and time. I chose the last one. My birthday, if I had one worth celebrating, would start at midnight. His would too. I set the date for Friday. Time, 12:12 a.m. Right as Logan's birthday began. Right as the day he'd built with lies officially started. I imagined Sabrina, up late, finalizing decorations, or checking her phone in bed. I imagined her screen lighting up at exactly midnight with a new message. I imagined her opening it, scrolling through the screenshots, seeing and writing all the things he'd conveniently left out. There was a streak of cruelty in that image, and I recognized it. I didn't look away from it. But there was justice there too. He had written his story about me in private, confident I'd never see it, confident he could curate his image, trimming out all the parts that made him look less than perfect. I wasn't changing his words. I was just choosing when and how they'd be read. When I clicked Schedule Send, the confirmation message popped up at the bottom of the screen. Send scheduled for Friday, 12 a.m. That was it. The thing was out of my hands now, like a time transfer waiting to hit an account. I closed the laptop, turned off the dining room light, and stood in the darkness for a moment. In the bedroom, Logan was breathing evenly, asleep, his face relaxed and unbothered. I watched him for a long second, trying to match this peaceful version with the man in those emails, the one who described me as an obligation, a burden, an embarrassment. People talk about trust like it's a switch, on or off, whole or broken. That night, looking at him, I realized it was more like a spreadsheet full of tiny figures. It doesn't usually explode in one moment. It erodes. A wrong number here, a quiet omission there, a series of small discrepancies you ignore until one day you pull back and realize none of it adds up anymore. By the time the clock on my nightstand flipped to 11:58 p.m. on Thursday, I was awake, staring at the red numbers. When it turned to 12 on Nuke, I pictured an invisible line being crossed. Not just the calendar flipping to his birthday, but something else. The moment the story stopped belonging only to him. Friday evening arrived with a strange clarity. All day at work, I felt like I was moving through fog while everyone else was sharp and bright. My inbox pinged, meetings happened, someone brought donuts, people chatted about weekend plans, but under every mundane detail ran a quiet, steady hum. 1200 a.m. has already passed, the message has already been read, the fuse is already burning. I didn't know what Sabrina had done with the email yet. I didn't know if she'd confronted him immediately or waited for the party. I didn't know whether Logan had checked his phone after midnight, standing in her living room, or sitting in his car, or brushing his teeth, expecting birthday wishes, not receipt-shaped consequences. All I knew was that by the time he saw me again, the truth would already be out. He got home from work around 5 o'clock, unusually buoyant. He changed into a crisp shirt I'd never seen before. Dark blue, slim cut, expensive. He'd bought it recently, quietly, maybe for the party. He spritzed cologne and checked his reflection twice. "You look nice," I said, leaning on the bedroom doorway. He smiled at me over his shoulder. "Thanks. Big evening?" "Yeah, just dinner with the guys. But you know how they are. Probably going to drag me from place to place." He said it so casually, so effortlessly, I almost admired it. His confidence in the lie was staggering. "Have fun," I told him. He stepped forward and kissed my forehead like I was a roommate he felt vaguely affectionate toward. "Don't wait up." "I won't." He left at 6 sharp. 10 minutes after the door closed, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I didn't cry. I didn't break down. Instead, I washed the dishes, put leftovers in containers, and turned on the dishwasher early just to hear the familiar whirring, the sound of a machine doing exactly what it was supposed to. At 7:14 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Is this Kira? I frowned and typed. Yes. Who's this? A moment passed. It's Melissa. I sit 2 desks down from Logan. I'm at a party right now. Sabrina's party. Are you supposed to be here? My stomach went tight. He told me he had a work dinner. Her response came fast. Oh, no. This is definitely not a work dinner. People were asking where you were. Logan said you had to work late. My jaw clenched. He told me he didn't want me to plan anything for his birthday because I embarrass him. I didn't realize the truth was that he planned a whole party I wasn't invited to. Her reply came instantly. Jesus, Kira, I am so sorry. And, not to pry, but are he and Sabrina... People have been wondering. Of course they had. I'm aware of the situation. She hesitated a moment, then, do you want me to say something to him? Or to her? I can. I stared at the message for a long second. And then I realized something with a sudden, eerie calm. The truth was already in motion. The email had already been delivered. Sabrina had already seen everything. There was nothing left for Melissa to do. No, don't say anything. Let the night unfold. Are you sure? Very. At 7:42 p.m., Logan's name lit up my phone. I didn't answer. He called again. I didn't answer. At 7:45, he sent a text. Kira, call me, now. I locked the screen. At 8:03, another. What did you do? Why is Sabrina asking me about screenshots? What the hell is going on? Then a call. Then another. Then a voicemail. Kira, this isn't funny. Call me back right now. Funny. That was not the word I would have chosen. I set my phone down on the coffee table, turned on a soft lamp, and sat cross-legged on the couch as the calls kept coming. Finally, at 10:12, the calls stopped. At 11:58, I heard footsteps in the hallway. At 12:02 a.m., the front door opened. Logan didn't slam it, didn't throw anything. He stepped inside quietly, like he wasn't sure he was still welcome. He looked wrecked. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair messed up like he'd run his hands through it 1,000 times, and his eyes were red, not necessarily from crying, could have been rage. He stood in the doorway of the living room, staring at me like I was a locked puzzle he couldn't solve. We need to talk, he said. I looked up from where I'd been sitting with a blanket over my legs. About what? You know damn well about what. He looked smaller, deflated, uncertain. What happened at the party? I asked evenly. His jaw tightened. Sabrina confronted me in front of everyone. Ah, there it was. The real problem wasn't the betrayal. It was the audience. And? I asked. And she showed me the email. His voice broke through clenched teeth. The screenshots. He ran a hand through his hair. She said she didn't know we were together, he continued. She said she felt blindsided, embarrassed. I let the word hang there. Embarrassed. How ironic, I murmured. He flinched, just slightly. It wasn't like that, he said quickly. Sabrina and we weren't, nothing happened. I nodded. Physically? Yes. That I can believe. He hesitated. So you're saying what? That I cheated? I'm saying you had an emotional relationship with someone else. You told her things about our relationship that you never told me. You planned a birthday party with her. You chose her attention over mine. You shared jokes, complaints, secrets. He swallowed. You told her you needed space from me. You told her I didn't get you. You told her I embarrass you. His face creased. Kira. And then, I said softly, you told me not to plan anything for your birthday because you didn't want me to ruin the perfect night you were building with someone else. He didn't have a response for that. Instead, he sank onto the armchair across from me, head in his hands. I messed up, he said, voice raw. I know I did, but I didn't cheat, I swear. Logan, I interrupted, you've been cheating for months. Maybe you never touched her, but you chose her, over and over, instead of talking to me, instead of respecting me, instead of being honest. He stared at the floor. Can't we work through this? He whispered. I made a mistake. Multiple mistakes, I corrected, repeatedly and strategically. His hands curled into fists. I didn't mean to hurt you. You did it anyway. Silence stretched between us. Finally, I stood. You're sleeping on the couch tonight. His head snapped up. What? Tomorrow you can pack your things and find somewhere else to stay. You're breaking up with me? I looked at him for a long moment. You broke us first, I said. I'm just acknowledging the reality you built. He stared at me, stunned, then desperate. Kira, please, I love you. I shook my head. No, you loved the idea of me, until it stopped matching the image you wanted to project. You never loved who I actually was. He didn't argue. And that told me everything I needed to know. I left him sitting in the chair, head bowed, shoulders slumped, while I stepped into the bedroom and quietly closed the door. It was the first time I'd ever closed that door between us. It wouldn't be the last. Logan slept on the couch that night, or at least he lay there. I could hear him shifting, sighing, getting up for water, sitting back down. The springs creaked. The cushions thumped. Maybe he was hoping I'd open the bedroom door and say, "Come in, let's talk." Maybe he wanted to knock and beg. Or maybe he was just realizing, in slow, miserable increments, that the version of me he'd taken for granted no longer existed. I didn't sleep either, but my mind was strangely calm. Not peaceful, just clear, sharp, like glass that's already shattered and is done breaking. By morning, the apartment felt different, quieter, airless. I walked out just after 7 a.m. Logan was sitting upright on the couch, still wearing last night's clothes, eyes hollow. He looked at me like I was the last person in the world who could save him. I couldn't. "Kira," he started, voice hoarse. "Can we talk?" "No," I said. "We talked last night." He swallowed. "Can I at least explain?" "You already explained," I replied, "in emails, for months." The way he winced told me those words hit exactly where they should. He stood slowly. "Just tell me what you want me to do." "Pack." He didn't argue, didn't plead. He only nodded, as if something in him had finally accepted the verdict. He went to the bedroom, the one we'd shared for 18 months, and began gathering his things. Shirts, cologne, chargers, the expensive watch he'd insisted on buying to look the part at work. I watched him fold things neatly, methodically, like he was trying to control at least this one last moment. At 9 a.m., someone knocked on the door. It was his sister, Amber, the one who always liked me, but never stepped into conflict. When she saw Logan's suitcase by the door and my blank expression behind him, her face fell. "Oh, Logan," she said quietly. "You didn't tell me it was like this." He didn't respond. She helped him carry boxes to her car. They made 2 trips, maybe 3. He didn't come back upstairs after the last one. Amber returned alone to hand me the spare apartment key he'd forgotten in the dish by the door. "I'm really sorry," she said softly. "I know." She hesitated, then added, "You didn't deserve any of this." I nodded. "I know that too." Then she left, and the door clicked shut behind her, leaving the apartment colder than it had been moments before. I didn't cry. What I felt wasn't grief. It was a hollowed-out exhaustion, the kind you get after carrying something heavy for too long and suddenly setting it down. Logan didn't come back that day. He didn't text, didn't call. And honestly, I preferred it that way. There was nothing left to say. By the next morning, the apartment looked different. His shoes gone from the rack, his jackets missing from the hook, the bathroom counter suddenly empty. A different kind of quiet settled over the place. Not lonely, just honest. Over the next week, word spread at work. Not because I said anything, God knows I said nothing. I didn't want drama, didn't want pity, didn't want curious glances or whispered questions. But people talk. Especially people who were at a birthday party where the host confronted the guest of honor about cheating in front of 12 colleagues. By the second week, whispers carried through departments like drafts slipping under doors. "Oh my God, did you hear what happened between Logan and Kira?" Sabrina absolutely lost it on him. He said he was practically single while living with her. He lied to both of them? Jesus. No one approached me directly. They just watched me with that mix of sympathy and morbid curiosity people get when they're dying to know the full story, but don't dare ask. Melissa eventually found me at the coffee machine. She approached hesitantly. "Kira, can I say something?" I nodded. "I'm sorry," she said, "for not realizing sooner, for not asking questions, for being at events where he complained about you and not thinking to tell you." "You didn't owe me anything," I said gently. "His choices were his." She nodded, relieved, then added, "For what it's worth, he transferred departments yesterday." I raised an eyebrow. Official reason was career growth. Unofficial reason? Melissa smirked. He couldn't handle the looks. I didn't gloat. But I didn't feel bad either. Consequences aren't cruelty. They're math. Just a long equation finally balancing. Sabrina sent me a message a few days after. "I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't know. He told me you two were basically done. I feel sick about my part in it." I stared at the screen for a long while before responding. "I don't blame you, but I don't want to talk about him anymore. Take care of yourself." She replied, "You too." And that was the last time we spoke. She resigned from the company 3 weeks later. As for me, I started therapy. Not because I was heartbroken. Honestly, I felt more relieved than devastated. What hurt me wasn't the breakup. It was realizing how long I'd tolerated quiet humiliation disguised as constructive criticism. My therapist told me something that stuck. When people chip away at your self-esteem slowly, it rarely feels like abuse. It just feels like your fault. That sentence hit me harder than any of Logan's lies. I stopped blaming myself, and I started living differently. One morning, I woke up and stared at the pale sage green paint on my bedroom wall. Logan had insisted on that color because it photographed well. I hated it. By noon, I'd gone to the hardware store. By 3 p.m., the wall was a soft, warm linen white that looked like mourning instead of restraint. I changed the bedding, moved the dresser, donated half the decor Logan had chosen. It wasn't an exorcism, it was reclamation. My life was mine again. 2 weeks later, a friend set me up on a casual coffee date with a guy named Ethan. Nothing serious, nothing high stakes, just two people making conversation in a small cafe with mismatched mugs. He laughed, genuinely, at my story about the dishwasher that kicks on at 12:00 a.m. When I wore my favorite oversized sweater to the second date, the one Logan called frumpy, Ethan said, "That looks comfortable and warm. I love it." Funny how a single compliment can crack something open. Not romance, just possibility. One night, long after the breakup, I opened my laptop to do my Sunday spreadsheet review. A new tab blinked at the bottom of the screen, one I'd renamed without thinking. Kira, single. Rent? Groceries? Savings? Future maybe. I adjusted the projections, updated the formulas, added a tentative line for a solo vacation someday. When everything balanced, I sat back and let out a slow breath. For the first time in months, the numbers felt like they meant something again. Like my life wasn't misaligned anymore. Like I wasn't misaligned anymore. People ask whether I regret scheduling that midnight email, whether it was cruel, whether I should have confronted him privately. And here's the truth. Logan spent months telling two different stories, one to me, one to everyone else. He built a life with me in private, then curated a version of himself in public that didn't include me at all. His whole birthday was built on lies. I just sent the truth to the right person, at exactly the right time. Some people wait for karma. Me? I schedule it.